Hello, everybody. Welcome to Grand Rounds for November of 2021. Today we have Shelby Brown talking to us about interoception. She graduated from Elizabethtown College with a master's degree in occupational therapy, and she's had experience in both inpatient and outpatient settings, as well as early intervention. Though she loves working with all populations, she's found her passion with pediatrics and has worked solely with pediatrics over recent years. Ms. Brown aims to provide individualized care to promote well-being and independence using a family-centered approach. And she's experienced in a variety of treatment strategies with special interest in interoception because it is such a vital, unique, and underrated sensory system that each and every human being needs for quality of life. So just as a reminder, make sure you log in through Teams under your name so that I know you're here. And afterwards, you'll get an email from the EAD system to either register your name or log in and complete the quiz and the course evaluation. If you're watching this through the recording, obviously you've already clicked on the link through EADS, and please make sure you complete that quiz and course evaluation to get credit. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Ms. Brown.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming on. It's really awesome to see so many people who are interested in learning more about interoception. I'm sure some of you may have already heard about it a little bit. If you haven't, I'm really glad you're here because I think this is a really awesome topic. This is just our continuing medical education credit information, and I will point out that this is relevant to everybody of all disciplines, OT, PT, speech. If you're a physician, if you're a dietitian, it's really relevant to everyone, teachers, behavior therapists, parents. So this is a really, really generalizable topic. This is our St. Luke's designation statement. I have no financial disclosure to place here. So really the goal for today is to kind of have everybody get a better idea of what interoception is, portray its extensive relevance to all of your clients, your families, your colleagues, and kind of really have an idea of what that could mean, and maybe be able to begin to start looking from an interoceptive lens with your own clients and your caseload, and then kind of figuring out, hey, would this be relevant to my own caseload, and how could I start to work on that, and maybe even start to reflect on your own personal interoceptive awareness, and kind of have a new lens. And then before I totally dive in, I just want to briefly thank Dr. Kelly Mahler, who's an occupational therapist. She's one of the key faces of the interoception movement. She's a very experienced OT, author, researcher, professor, and speaker whose work on interoception is now being utilized in over 30 countries worldwide. I'm really fortunate to have had Dr. Mahler as a professor in my graduate year at Elizabethtown, and I know her personally. Kelly has inspired me to dig deep and to investigate the power interoception can have if we only take a moment to step back and learn to listen to our bodies. So we all are very familiar that we have 8 sensory systems. Our first 5 are vision, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. We're all super familiar with that. They teach that to kids in school. Many of us are fortunate to know about the proprioceptive and vestibular sensory systems, which is just our body awareness in space, and even if we have movement going on. And then our 8th sensory system is interoception. Interoception was actually discovered around the same time as proprioception and vestibular, but it kind of wasn't really talked about much until more recently, which is really interesting. So each sense has a set of receptors that are in charge of pulling information in. So vision, it's in our eyes. Hearing receptors are in our ears. Tactile, skin. Olfactory is nose. Gustatory is tongue. Our vestibular is the inner ear. Proprioception, you have receptors in our muscles and joints. And then for interoception, those receptors are in our organs, bones, muscles, and skin. So that is really, really interesting. So what is interoception? Essentially, our 8th sensory system allows us to notice and interpret body sensations. So sensation feedback, which is provided to our brain via connections to our receptors in our organs, muscles, bones, and skin, is kind of how that all connects. And that all takes place in the insular cortex, or the insula for short. And that is what we are calling the interoception center of the brain. Our ability to notice and interpret sensations is called interoceptive awareness, also referred to and abbreviated as IA, and it falls along a sliding scale, meaning there is a variation of our awareness levels. This will in turn vary how an individual can react or respond based on their sensory experience in a given moment. We'll refer back to this concept of a sliding scale as we further define interoception and discuss what we can do about interoceptive levels that hinder or cause harm to an individual in their day-to-day lives. And then we have variable sensory experiences, which yield variable sensory responses, and thus IA guides emotion and self-regulation. So how does interoception work? So those little receptors that we talked about located inside of the body, such as areas like the stomach, heart, genitals, muscles, skin, and eyes, gather information from the inside of our body and send it to the insula, which again is our interoceptive area of the brain. And the insula uses this information to figure out how we feel from physical conditions such as itch, pain, body temperature, nausea, need for the bathroom, tickle, physical exertion, and sexual arousal to emotions. Each person has a left and a right insula in the lateral portions of the brain. Within recent research on the insula, this area of the brain is emerging as a crucial part of human behavior. And research is showing that both higher insula activity and thicker insula gray matter correlate with better interoceptive awareness. There's even evidence suggesting that a portion of the insula that is part of the salience network, which allows us to filter our external and internal sensory input and use the most important information to guide our behavior. So thinking about how do we kind of tune out the things that aren't as important and focus on the things that are more important in a moment. Many of us here today probably tune into our bodies automatically, and we know how we're feeling throughout the day. Despite having very good or exceptional interoceptive awareness, I'm sure each one of us can reflect on a few moments where we might have difficulty self-regulating, especially when we're experiencing increased stress or decreased self-care time. We're super fortunate to be living at a time where an enormous mindset shift is occurring in the world of mental health and physical health, and more resources and strategies are becoming available for us to make adjustments in our life to reduce uncomfortable feelings such as anxiety, stress, fatigue, loneliness, pain, and depression. And as we reflect on this, let's step back and appreciate that we all have room to improve our own interoceptive awareness and expand our own self-regulation toolkit. Maybe we could reflect on a time where our own emotions were building up, but we weren't just aware how much so until we spilled over. We might think of a moment when we didn't realize that we were feeling sick or exhausted until our bodies were screaming so loudly with discomfort that we finally gave in to our natural urge to care for ourselves, and your body kind of makes you do that. Maybe we didn't feel thirsty all day long until a sharp headache set in and we realized how little fluids we drank in the day in the midst of our daily grind. I'm sure we all can relate to that. So interoception is an experience. Let's think about, how do you know when you're hungry? How do you know when you're full? How do you know when you have to pee or poop? What about when you're hot, cold, tired, angry, nervous, scared? The list goes on. You know this because of interoception. If we look here, I have a couple examples. So let's say you notice you have goosebumpy skin and tight muscles. You feel cold, and then you have that action to put on a jacket. Can go and eat a snack or have a meal. And there's even more complex versions of that, such as nervousness, and we are able to act on that all within seconds and without a thought. For a moment, let's circle back to our other sensory systems. We know that many neurodivergents experience the world in a vastly different way, and they respond to different visual, auditory, olfactory, gustatory, vestibular, and proprioceptive stimuli in a variety of manners, which may be difficult for the majority of the population to understand. Think about our kiddos in the pediatric world who have food aversions, gravitational insecurities, toileting accidents, eating disorders, sound hypersensitivities, etc. Sensory differences are also present for the interoceptive sensory system. When challenges with interoceptive awareness are present, the term reduced interoceptive awareness or reduced IA is noted, or more recently, interoceptive uncertainty. Literature often references the term alexithymia, which is the inability to recognize or describe one's emotions when researching interoception. However, there are some debates about using that term as interchangeable because the term alexithymia limits the understanding of an individual's comprehensive interoceptive experience, because that is the emotions plus the physical urges working together. It's not just about reduced understanding of emotions. It's a lot more than that. So let's think about our clients, both pediatrics and adults, and just remember that it's never too early or too late to start working on building interoceptive awareness. So I think in particular, a very special population that comes to mind is the young adults who are trying to transition from high school or college into a young adult life. And we all know that there's a huge gap in services, supports, programs for this population as it is. And many of these individuals have undergone 18 plus years of therapy, school, supports without any focus on interoceptive awareness. They need you to educate them on what they are missing and how they can thrive. So let's go back to that sliding scale concept. We all have very different inner experiences. Some signals might be clear, some might be very unclear. Clear signals are helpful, and unclear signals are not as helpful. Unclear signals can be too big, too small, or distorted. Some body signals might be clear, while other body signals may be unclear and more difficult to notice, and then also difficult to connect those signals to emotion if they're very unclear. So let's look at an example. So if we have on a sliding scale a client here, maybe the client drinks throughout the day without reminders, so they kind of have pretty clear interoceptive awareness in terms of thirst, and maybe they are able to communicate when they're too tired during karate class and they need a break. Okay, so that's pretty clear for them. But what about the client does not show much excitement, anger, upset, or other emotions unless it's a very significant event? Well, that's a bit unclear. And then for hunger, maybe the client is able to drink on his own, but he needs reminders to eat. So, he is showing some unclear signals there as well. And maybe for pain, we have a lot of parents who might say, oh, Johnny's a drama queen, or so-and-so has a full-blown meltdown over a paper cut. That's pretty unclear to that individual. So an individual can have different thresholds and or responses for different body and emotion states. They can have typical thresholds for all but one emotion or body state, or they could have low thresholds for some and high for others. They could be a little low, a little high, or anywhere in between. This is not a one-size-fits-all concept. This highlights the capacity for each individual to have individual experiences. We need to honor that each person has a unique world experience and meet them where they're at. We cannot assume anything about what they experience, how strongly they experience it, or how they prefer to respond or react to those experiences. The awesome news is research shows that interoceptive awareness can be improved. There are so many research studies out there. There are so many books and studies online. Even if you just go and do a basic search using the keywords interoception and intervention, you can find a ton that comes up. I just wanted to highlight a couple examples of some research that is going on right now that's interesting. So for one, mindfulness is kind of an approach that a lot of adults use to kind of help themselves to regulate, and that is being shown now to increase our ability to be more aware of our interoceptive system. Let's look at the ARFID diagnosis. If you're not familiar with that, that is the avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. There was a study here that showed that individuals with ARFID might avoid food to avoid uncomfortable internal sensations. So increasing interoceptive awareness and helping them to figure out how we can make things more comfortable can be a game changer for these kids. For war veterans, a 12-week intervention exercise camp helped to improve self-reported mindfulness and interoceptive awareness. There was another study about improving interoceptive awareness in individuals with suicidal ideation, and it did have a positive correlation with lower suicidal ideation with improved interoception. There was one with women who have addiction about how that was able to improve with interoceptive awareness treatments. And then even a single yoga class had a significant impact on interoceptive awareness in typical clients. And just a couple more studies, food for thought. There were some mothers who their own personal interoceptive knowledge actually predicted their child's emotional regulation and social skills in middle childhood. So imagine that if we have a child who's really struggling, but then mom is also struggling, how is she able to really support her child with self-regulation if she can't herself do that? It's being studied in individuals with traumatic brain injury. It's being studied in individuals in all sorts of manners. There was even one at the bottom here. I thought this was interesting about mobile phone dependence being resulted in lower interoceptive awareness. So all that screen time, all those phones, computers that these kids are doing, you know, we're seeing a decrease in social skills, a decrease in interoceptive awareness. This is so applicable. So I just put really random scattered ideas out here to maybe help you think about how maybe clients in your own caseload are related to this and where you could go with this concept. So applying this to what we're actually doing. So I know that one of the examples being referenced, or some of the examples that I'm referencing here, might seem pediatric focused, and that is the population where these topics are more frequently coming up, and that's where I personally am working. However, these sensations are critical to all people of all ages. Clear interoceptive awareness is necessary to attain success, even with the most basic ADLs of daily living. I don't actively work with the adult population at this time, but I can envision so many circumstances where jumbled, confusing body signals can hugely impact their quality of life. And I believe that the adult therapist can make a massive difference by addressing and building IA as well. So let's talk about coping and self-regulation goals. Pediatric world, think about some goals that you personally have written or seen on a short-term goal list for a client with autism or other neurodivergent kiddos. A goal that comes to mind is client will independently identify 3 coping strategies, or client will use a coping strategy with minimal verbal prompts to self-regulate when frustrated. I've seen goals like that over and over again, but let's think about that. How can we possibly expect clients with reduced IA to meet a goal such as that? They might be able to learn how to do coping strategies, deep breathing, wall push-ups, counting to 10, and recite them on command, but they don't use them independently in a moment of frustration, anger, or upset because they don't notice the sensations and they don't feel the urge to act in the moment. The classic self-regulation goals are extremely unrealistic for many of our clients without the use of IA building work. And let's talk about identifying the urge to pee and poop, especially in regards to pooping. Pediatric therapists in particular, how many of your clients have regular formed bowel movements? How many of them suffer from intermittent or chronic constipation or diarrhea? How many of them are regulated by medication or supplement like Miralax? And how many of them also have limited food varieties? Laxatives actually soften the stool so much, parents might use the term mushier, that the sensation of the stool is much less than a formed stool, and the sensory experience of having a bowel movement is much worse. Imagine being expected to identify the need to poop when you are irregular and have runny, unformed, or mushy stool. It's not easy. So not only do we need to account for the interoceptive uncertainty, we also need to account for the physical factors, food, medication, environment, that are also at play, and recognize that these individuals have so much working against them. And let's talk about feeding. This one speaks for itself a bit, but we need to address muted or magnified hunger or fullness signals to support an individual's ability to start and stop eating or drinking in a safe and healthy pattern. Social skills, being able to identify and recognize the complex social cues of today's modern world is challenging enough, even without reduced interoceptive awareness. The role of hiding behind a screen further limits the opportunities for practice, recognizing cues in real life situation. And this often exacerbates social anxiety and isolation. which is the opposite of our community integration goals. And then lastly, let's talk about body and safety awareness. How can these individuals possibly recognize that jumping next to equipment or through a group of people is not safe when they're unable to truly recognize or process proprioceptive and vestibular input? And if social cues are difficult to identify and process, they may not be able to understand that someone is shouting "stop" or yelling is significant. That's not significant to them. So now what do we do about this? First, we need to start by finding out if our clients have decreased interoceptive awareness and if this is impacting their functional independence. So let's talk to the parents or caregivers. Let's talk to the clients. Let's do activities on the fly during your sessions and try to ask those questions to find out what's going on. Dr. Kelly Mahler, who I mentioned earlier, published an assessment for assessing this. It's not currently standardized with norm values or references, but this may change in the future. It's currently an objective, non-standardized assessment, but does provide the ability to calculate percentages with the main subtest. And there are other assessments being researched out there. One of them is called Interoception Sensory Questionnaire. So there's a lot of different formal assessments coming out, but a lot of this is going to be informal parent, caregiver, client interview. How do you know when you have to eat? How do you know when you have to go to the bathroom? Ask them these questions. Ask them how they're doing it. If you're really seeing some concerns there or some decreased awareness there, you're gonna see that in their answers. You can also begin to introduce interoception to clients under the age of 5, even though some of these standardized tests are more for above 5. But it's important to remember their functional age and cognitive level. And on that note, cognition is a factor in assessment and treatment of interoceptive awareness. Obviously, if we have cognitive deficits, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. However, you can adapt and modify and tailor to your clients. So when it comes to treatment, once we notice that there is some room to improve interoceptive awareness, we need to first teach our clients how to notice body signals, period. Once they can notice body signals, then we can start to give meaning to those body signals and connect it to an emotion. And then once we can give meaning, then we can learn how to act upon them. If we just go right back to our actions of, okay, let's do wall push-ups, let's count to 10, but we don't have the foundation for noticing and giving meaning, you're essentially not going to see the results that you want. So we have a body, emotion, action, connection. So what body signals do I notice right now? And then what do those body signals mean? What am I experiencing? And then what action do I need to take to either keep the comfort or restore the comfort if it's an uncomfortable sensation? So let's say I notice heavy eyes, loose muscles, and a slow brain. Now I can connect that to I'm feeling tired. And now I can regulate that by taking a nap or going to sleep. I can notice tight hands, hot cheeks, shaking muscles. I can connect that to anger. I'm feeling angry. And then I can take an action and regulate by walking away and taking a break. Imagine how that would go if you try to do it the reverse way. So we need to consider how to adapt, modify, and support treatment to assist clients who have reduced interoceptive awareness. Let's use visual schedules and checklists about when we can take body checks, when we can take breaks if that's something. Maybe you notice they get overwhelmed easily. Maybe we schedule in some breaks throughout the day. Maybe we have a checklist so we don't forget to complete certain hygiene tasks. We can have electronic reminders or alarms in our phone. Hey, don't forget to go maybe check and see if we have to go to the bathroom. Memorize rules and social narratives. I put an example in here about maybe they have reduced touch or pain awareness, so educating them on what cuts look like, what bruises look like, show them pictures, show them videos, and then having them do routine body checks. And then if they notice any of those things, let's go and tell a trusted adult so we can kind of address that if they're not noticing those things on their own. That would be more for an older individual, and again, keeping those cognitive age and developmental factors in mind and modifying treatment as needed. So again, body, emotion, action. So in treatments, we're teaching and reviewing individual body parts in order to teach them to notice signals. And then we have to practice noticing those body signals. Once we have a really good foundation, we can teach and review what emotions there are, how they feel, how what body signals might equate to an emotion, and then we can practice connecting emotions to those signals over and over. And then we can teach, review, and trial different actions, different things we can do to help us feel better. And this is something that every person is going to feel differently about. Maybe taking a walk is going to feel great for Johnny, but that doesn't work for Mary. We have to have each individual go through, let's try this, this, and this. Which of these made me feel better? Which of these didn't? And kind of come up with their own personal feel-good menu. So if we dive into the body part of this. So the goal here, like we talked about, is increasing their ability to notice body signals. So typically what we've been doing for people who are really incorporating this in treatment is introducing one body part at a time at whatever pace is best for the learner. So typically we start from the outside in. So I start with the most external tangible body part, so hands and fingers. So maybe we talk about what our hands can feel like. Maybe your hands could feel fast, they could feel slow, they could feel hot, they could feel cold, sweaty. We talk about all these different ways. We have words, we have pictures, whatever way they learn best. And we do different experiments. We do different activities, like let's touch these cups of water. Does this make my hands feel cold, or does it make my hands feel warm? And we practice different things, noticing those signals with our hands and our fingers. Maybe we blow through this lesson in 20 minutes. Maybe it takes us 3 months. It just depends on the individual client. And noticing them during those structured experiments and then on the fly. So maybe you're doing an obstacle course, maybe you're doing shoe tying, maybe you're working on showering, whatever it is, in the moment. Hey, how did that make your hands feel? And doing completing regular intentional body checks. So a body check is intentionally focusing on a body part and thinking about how it feels in the moment. So maybe you've heard the term body scan, or if you do meditation, they talk about, okay, let's focus on this part of our body. Notice how you're releasing the wrinkles in your forehead, like very specific body noticing. And I put in here a little tip to always do positive practice. So if you have a client who is undergoing a meltdown, that is not a teachable moment, and we should always make sure that all of this is in a positive situation. So I put a couple screenshots in here of a hands lesson. This would be like what I would do on like the first session when they're ready. Sometimes I might have to do some preparatory activities with them, just like noticing different signals. But if they're ready, I might go through an actual lesson. So I first have them help me brainstorm. What do you think are some different ways our hands and fingers can feel? And maybe like today, I did it this morning and I had a little guy say jiggly, and I was like, wow, that's a great word. Can you tell me more about what that means? My biggest thing is I never say that that's not a good answer. There's never a wrong answer. There's never a bad answer. Maybe for one client, they have a word and you don't really understand it, or maybe to them, that's what it feels like, but they're never wrong. We just honor what they're feeling and we talk about it. Wow, that's a really interesting word. Can you tell me more about that? And then I kind of tell them about some other ways that our hands or fingers or whatever body part it is might be able to feel. And I often use visuals for our clients because we have a lot of visual learners. We also have pre-reader learners, so that's really helpful. In this curriculum that I'm showing here, this is actually from Kelly Mahler's curriculum. You can purchase this online. I know we have it at Whitehall. I think Tillman bought it, but you can customize it and do your own pictures as well. I worked with a family who they said, you know what, this picture doesn't really mean that for my daughter. Can we use a picture of foot in snow outside instead of an ice cube? I said, sure, why not? So make it custom. There's an experiment page that comes in each body part lesson. I usually will save that for home program and give that to the family to take home and say, hey, why don't you practice that this week? And then I will use the specific experiments that I'll show you on the next slide in the session. And then on the last page of every single lesson that she has is it talks about how hands can feel on the fly, gives parents ideas about different prompts. For example, a beginner level prompt is different than an advanced or proficient level prompt. If we think about saying, hey, Johnny, do your hands feel cold or wet? That's more of a beginner level prompt or an intermediate level prompt versus how do your hands feel? That's a little bit more complex. Maybe if they're really early in learning, you say, wow, it looks like your hands are moving super fast right now. So kind of pointing it out and noticing those things. These are some examples of experiment cards. These are also made by Kelly Muller. I really, really like these. I pull out different ones from the lesson we're working on, or if we're through many lessons, I'll mix them up. I'll put them on the rock wall. I'll put them under different things. We do scavenger hunt. We take them outside. We spread them around the room, whatever we're doing, and we practice different things. So let's do one. So rub your hands back and forth really fast for 10 seconds like this. How does it make your hands feel? Most likely you would say warm, but maybe a certain kiddo is not quite sure. And we say, do you think that might make your hands feel cold or warm? Or if they're not quite there yet, whoa, I feel my hands are smoking hot. Like, you just kind of go with it. So just, keep in mind, these cards are really great tools, but you can also do things on the fly. So while you're using glue to make a craft, while you're playing with shaving cream, oh my gosh, how does this make your hands feel? All of that. And from an adult lens, this could be used during a variety of whatever meaningful activities you're doing, cooking, cleaning, dressing, bathing. It doesn't have to be shaving cream or whatever. So for body checks, I briefly mentioned about focusing on a body part and then checking and noticing what signals are happening in that body part. For a really early learner, I might start with just a hand chart or a foot chart or both, and make it really simple. How do our hands feel right now? And they can use that visual icon, and it's Velcro, and they put it up on the hand to indicate how their hand is feeling. These pictures can be customized. I literally went on Google and typed like feet in the snow, that kind of thing. Then a more intermediate body check chart would be maybe a laminated body with some of the external, more tangible body parts. So think hands, feet, eyes, ears, and we practice signals with those body parts. Maybe an advanced version would be the whole body, and we have all 15 body parts. I usually start with just the ones that we're working on, and I add as we go. And I do try to have the clients make a folder with me, and I try to involve the client and the family, because I have in the past made a whole folder for a family and then the dog ate it. Whoops, that's a lot of time that you're spending. So really involving them in the process to get their buy-in, their commitment, and they'll kind of appreciate it a little bit more. And also you can work on fine motor skills, visual motor skills, whatever you're doing, and it gets them to help you create it. So maybe saying, hey, do you want to use words? Do you want to use pictures? Do you like these pictures? Should we find new pictures? Getting their input and really making it for them, rather than just giving them a tool that maybe you thought this was the better way, but they had a better idea. Our kids are very creative, so I usually like to leave some blank icons, maybe a hand picture with no word, no ice cube, nothing like that, because in the moment, like this morning, my kiddo said, wow, my hands are jiggly, and I was like, okay, great. So they are very creative, and leaving it open-ended, because again, there are no wrong answers. All of us experience things differently. This is another example of a body check chart. This is a dry erase magnetic one in a binder. That's another way you can do it. There's also a body check ring. Kelly Muller sells it on her website for on the go. I've given that to families to kind of use in the car or wherever they are, so it's very portable and easy to reference. Some other body lesson tools that I use a lot, I really like the Melissa and Doug magnetic skeleton. I put like the different systems on there. I'll have kids do games with me. You have a picture in the middle here of me wearing a body organ apron. So I'll have kids take the organs off and put them back on. Sadly, it's not super COVID friendly because it's like that fabric material. So I use it sparingly, and I always have them wash their hands before we use it. But I think it's a really fun tool to show whoa, this is how big my organs are. There's a really cool book and jigsaw of the human body by Usborne that a family showed me, and I really liked that. There's a lot of different tools on Amazon, and they're really affordable. I think all of these are 20 bucks or less. So that's kind of the body part. If we move on to the emotion part of this, let's reflect on, this is the goal of increasing their ability to give meaning to all the body signals noticed. So how can we start to introduce the idea that body signals are clues to our emotions? We can do social stories. We can do body signal plus body signal equals emotion game, almost like a math game. Let's see, sweaty hands plus fast heart. What could that mean? Maybe that could be nervous. Maybe that could be excited, whatever that might be. You can do those focus area experiments. Let's listen to a repetitive sound for 1 minute. How does this make your body feel? What emotion could it be? And then we can take our body check chart, some of those examples I showed you, and then we add an emotion grid to it, maybe on the back or on a separate page. It could be super simple where it just lists the emotion, or it could be a little bit more complex. And I'll show some examples of this on the next slide. We're going to have to educate our client and our family to ask questions and encourage connecting body signals to emotions. You said your hands are wiggling. How do you feel? What emotion is that? Discuss concepts of each emotion having different body signals as well. We need to investigate the cause for an emotion during a focus area experiment. So, our hands are feeling really sweaty. I'm feeling nervous. Why do you think I might be feeling nervous? Maybe I'm afraid to give this presentation. Maybe I'm nervous to go and talk to this friend, whatever it might be. And then we talked about that body emotion connection. We can make a chart, maybe growling stomach equals hungry, and kind of making like an individualized chart of like what those emotions could mean with those signals. And we can also even dive into a little hungry versus really hungry, or combination emotions like hangry. That would be for a little bit higher level. And I just want to point out that homeostatic emotions, body state like tired, thirsty, hungry, are different than affective emotions like happy, sad, relaxed. So this is what I was talking about. So I'll put like a super simple emotion grid on the back of a folder, or you could make a really custom, more detailed one. So maybe their emotion could be hot, and then variations will be burning up, overheated, warm. Talk to your client, see what would be most helpful for them. And then there's certain levels of those emotions. Maybe it's a lot, a little, medium, whatever you want to do. Just kind of showing you that you can individualize this. On the body check ring that had different hands could be sweaty, hot, cold, whatever, I kind of made an emotions card because I felt like it was really helpful moving on to the next stage of connecting to emotions and kind of having a quick reference for on the go with families. And that really seems to help, oh, wow, how do you feel right now? And kind of giving them, it's like a descriptor menu, because trying to remember from memory is difficult. So giving them that visual is really helpful. And then once we are really good with all of that, we've practiced, we've got that down, we can talk about increasing their ability to use feel-good actions in the moment to promote a more comfortable body experience or to maintain that comfortable experience. So let's do different activities. Is it comfortable? Is it uncomfortable? I mentioned earlier, maybe taking a walk is really helpful for Johnny, but not for Mary. We have to do different activities to find out what works for one individual. Introducing the idea that we have the ability to change the way our body feels. A lot of our kids have no idea, maybe they feel very angry, but they have no idea that we can change that. And we can participate in different activities to see how an action changes the way our body feel. So maybe right now, how do you feel? Now let's go and do 20 jumping jacks for 1 minute. How does your body feel now? Did you change the way your body feels? So maybe we were feeling relaxed and now we're feeling energetic. So just, kind of shows them, hey, we can change the way our body feels. And like I said, we can do that feel good action menu that we make with that client. Some of my favorite resources and tools are up here on the slide. The activity cards I had showed pictures of before, the body check ring I showed pictures of before. This is the curriculum that I've been using and loving, and then this green book here, it's called Interoception, the 8th Sensory System. I think it's 20 bucks on Amazon. It's really easy to find. If you are interested in learning more about interoception, or you have clients or families who want to learn more about it, it's not too thick. It's a really helpful, broken down understanding of it, of what it is and why it's important. So I think that would be a really good tool to share with families. There's other options out there to have guided exercises or yoga as well. Let's do this yoga pose, breathe in this way. Now, how does it make your body feel? You can make your own up as well, but these are just some tools that are available as well. Some of my other resources I really like this book called Listening to My Body. It's a nice little children's story, and it talks about different things throughout the day, and then throughout the book it's oh, now you try. Let's do this exercise, and how does it make your body feel? The Inside Your Outside Dr. Seuss book is really awesome. The What If I Know My Feelings from Usborne. And this is like a body workbook where it has different things that you can make copies of, cut it out, make life-size versions of organs, all that good stuff. And if you are working at a clinic and you feel like it would be helpful to have the curriculum at your clinic, you can get the whole curriculum with bundles, and there's lots of different deals that you can get, like a lot of tools together. You can come and talk to me. I can kind of give you some ideas about how to do that. My favorite handout is this one on the left. It's super bright and colorful, really easy to hand to parents and talk to them. There's more detailed ones, but I really like this one because it's cut, clean, dry. This is what it is. This is why it's helpful. Here's an awesome Facebook group. Families will post in here and say, hey, I have a daughter and she doesn't notice when she has to go to the bathroom. I've tried this, this, and this. Who has an idea to help me? It's a really great open space for families and therapists and other professionals to kind of go on and share ideas and resources. The cool thing about interoception is it can be paired with programs that we already know and use. So think about the zones of regulation, the alert program, or the incredible 5-point scale. Really cool programs, but maybe the individual isn't able to be as aware of how they're feeling in a moment. So maybe pairing it with the interoception curriculum could make it a lot more realistic and beneficial for them. A lot of schools will use these programs, but for certain kids, they're not able to achieve that level of understanding and success because of their decreased interoceptive awareness. We do really need to take care to dig deeper than surface behaviors. Kind of a side note here, but challenging behaviors typically means there's something more going on underneath. We do want to avoid pressing for compliance. This is unhealthy because it teaches them to suppress their needs rather than to address them. We don't want to classify our clients' problems as small or large. I've heard people say, oh, wow, is that a small problem or a big problem? So should we have a small reaction or a big reaction? But really, who are we to say how they're perceiving it? And we really should never use a sensory as a reinforcer. So we should never have a client say, okay, do this first, and then you can earn your time with the ball. Sensory needs are real. We need to respect that. A couple of my favorite treatment tips and hacks. I've talked about this a little bit throughout the presentation, but work your way from the most exterior tangible body parts toward inside intangible body parts. So it's a lot harder to jump right to practicing noticing our stomach signals and our bladder signals. So sometimes families come to us and say, hey, my son is having a really hard time toileting. Oh my gosh, let's work on that. But in order to get there first, we need to build our foundation. So that's my tip for that. We need to mesh all of these interoception activities and treatment strategies into meaningful routines. So during mealtime, during playtime, let's make it generalizable, not just these structured things once they're ready for it. Using as many visuals as we can is so helpful. A lot of us are very visual learners. Incorporating their best form of communication. Go to your speech friends. Do they communicate best with a device? Do they use PECs? Do they use sign language? How can we make this more attainable and realistic for them? How can we support their best needs? Repeat and practice again and again. Don't jump ahead too quickly. If you jump ahead and you're like, whoa, they were not ready for that, it's okay to go back and practice that again. Be creative. What ideas you see on here, maybe you can use it as a guide, but I want you to kind of think outside of the box. Have your clients work with you. Have your families work with you to come up with the ideas. They're going to be the ones to help make it the most successful because it's their life. Recruit your colleagues. PTs can kind of help with this. I talked, one of my PTs that I work with now, we both share a client who has pretty low awareness, and they'll be on the treadmill, and for him, he doesn't quite know how to communicate when he's tired appropriately. So I said, hey buddy, why don't you work with him and say like, wow, like your muscles are really fast right now, and using it during like PT sessions, like and kind of training them to understand like when our muscles feel shaky, when our muscles feel still, those kinds of things, and then relating those to emotions appropriately. And with time and practice, they'll get better at that. If you have behavior staff working with your clients, RBTs, BHTs, they keep changing their name, working with them and having them practice these things through the 30-40 hours they're with your client every week. You can educate their teachers to use it in the classroom. If they see counselors, they can be using it as well. doctors, physicians, they could be working with this a little bit and maybe referring them to work on this with the appropriate professionals. And again, educate everybody and get everybody involved. I put a couple of goal ideas in here. If you're going to be working on interoception with clients, this might be a starting point for you to kind of get an idea of, okay, how do I write a goal to achieve this? And if you are going to be working with a client on this, please feel free to email me and problem solve, or call me, and I'd be happy to kind of help you problem solve a little bit more if you want more ideas. Or that Facebook group would be another good place if you want to consult with other professionals. I touched on this a little bit a couple slides ago, but I just want to put a note about compliance-based approaches because this is a very hot topic right now. Compliance-based approaches teaches skills and desired behaviors through reinforcement. It aims to modify individuals' challenging behavior through external prompts and reinforcers. And this indirectly teaches them to ignore what their body is telling them. Research shows that compliance-based therapy, such as ABA, can be effective in reinforcing desired behaviors in those with autism and similar diagnoses. However, this is often used as an attempt to change behaviors without respecting the needs of the person. Trying to change those challenging behaviors through all kinds of external prompts and reinforcers actually destroys their interoceptive awareness and their core sense of self, which is exactly the opposite of what their neurobiology actually needs to support the dysregulation. But luckily, therapy is evolving, and we're focusing less on curing diagnoses and more on helping them to live independently. So let's change what's being said and done about behavior. I mean, and who are we to tell people what's normal anyways? So let's think about maybe an interoceptive-based approach and an interoceptive-based lens, and kind of help guide those who are using a compliance-based approach and saying, hey, like, what if we tried this? You know, we've been trying this, but it's not really working. So what else can we try? And really respect that individual's needs and empower them to listen to their body. So some implications for future practice and research. We know that research studies are finding that IA can be improved. There are more self-regulation treatments than we previously knew. It's not just the zones of regulation. There's so much more out there for us to learn and use. And there is a lot of hope and tools and resources that can help us to better serve our clients. I put a video in here, but I'm probably not going to play it because it'll be easier if you can just play it on your own. But this is a great clip that you can share with your client's family, your client's teachers. It's a really just like one of those animated videos that say, like, this is what interoception is, this is what it means, this is how it affects us. This is a really nice tool to use for teaching, because sometimes people learn better through videos or visuals than you talking to them. So this is linked on Kelly Mahler's website homepage, and it can also be searched on YouTube. I just put a couple of my references in here. And then I put my email at the end here, the office phone, and the address of the office I work at. If anybody has questions about interoception, how to use treatment strategies, how to write goals, hey, I just want to problem solve and bounce ideas about Johnny, please email me and call me. I would love to problem solve with you. I do have some exciting news to share. I am going to be starting an interoception study group. It's going to be the first Tuesday of every month starting in December at 7 o'clock. I can definitely send the link for that maybe to Steve, and he could pass it along to whoever's interested. It's for anybody, whether you work with adults or kids or teens or school, wherever you work. It's going to be an open, safe space just to talk about interoception and how we can learn about it and support our clients. So if you're interested in that, contact me. I'll try to send that out, and hope to see you guys on there.
7 a.m. or 7 p.m.?
7 p.m. 7 p.m. Were there any questions in the chat?
One person was asking if it's possible to get that PowerPoint as a reference for ordering some of these materials.
Yes, I think this recording is going to be posted, so then you can see it there, or if you want those resources specifically, you can also email me and I can send you those more information. Is there anything else in the question chat?
No, but I have a question.
Okay.
So, the term interoception is new to me.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the concepts that you're talking about, recognizing emotion, being able to regulate emotion, it seems very similar to the concept of emotional intelligence. Has there been any studies looking at the correlation between the two, or is it the same thing effectively?
That's a good question. I don't think anyone's ever put the two together like that. I would have to look into that. That's really interesting, though.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions, feel free to pop on and ask away. If not, that's fine, and hopefully we can connect.
And if you have any questions, you can feel free to just turn on your microphone and talk, or you can type into the chat.
Hi, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I work with the elderly population in their homes, and I was just wondering if you had any resources that might be more relevant to them, especially with their pain.
That's a really good question. I definitely think it would be worth. I definitely think it would be worth looking into with them. Just maybe kind of coming up with ways to identify what pain is, what that means, and connecting that to. I really like what you just said there. I would probably have to look into that a little bit, but I would love to problem solve with you. Would you be interested in coming on to like the study group maybe?
Sure.
Okay.
And in addition to that, if you would look up therapeutic neuroscience education or pain neuroscience education, that, again, interception is a new concept to me. However, it seems very, very highly correlated and something that would be applicable for adults.
Yeah, and I think just coming at it maybe from a mindfulness perspective too, that's been coming out in research a lot, mindfulness and interoception. So I wonder if that would be a good lens to look into for older adults.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Sure.
What other questions do you guys have? All right, well, thank you very much, and make sure you complete the quiz and the course evaluation. Thank you very much.